welcome back to the channel. So because I seem to have a bit of an inverter bent at the moment, I'm going to carry on down that little rabbit hole. For those of you that remember this video, I'll link that one down below. This is just a little 5-volt USB type inverter slash just a battery backup type system. So I'm going to build another one here. So I've got this one this time. So it's a so you put on, I think it's 3 batteries to make it into 12 volt. I'm going to parallel them up as well, so I get a little bit of extra length on it. It's got a heap of power points on the outputs here. So there's 2 12 volt ones here, a 9 volt and a USB, and then just a standard 12 volt input on it for the charger, which has got to be 12 volts as well. So I have a 12 volt power supply here that I'm going to use, and then batteries just hook into there. I've got some spare recycled lithium batteries that I'm going to use, and just weld those ones together and see how we go. So let's get into it. So the plan for this one is to run, for me, is to run my weather station and my router off it, so that if the power drops briefly or for a little while, then this will just give it that backup while it's while the power's off. So first thing I should do first, obviously, is check that this power supply actually works, because I didn't go that far ahead yet. So obviously I'm not going to use the cigarette lighter part of this one. I'm just going to hardwire it. So I'll just cut all this off. It's got some nice silicone stuff on it. The only other thing I haven't got for this yet actually is a box. So I'll have to sort out a box, whether I build one or whether I just go and buy a plastic one. Alright, we'll just do the measurement here. Very good. $27 volts sounds a bit high. It's something that's supposed to be 13 volts. I know that's kind of under load, but without a load, but that seems horrifically excessive. Alright, so after a little hunt, I found another charger here. So this one's adjustable. So apparently I can do, so the setting on this that you probably can't see in there says, because I can't even read it myself, 14 to 17. So that's a little bit better than 27. So I'm going to measure this one up and see how it behaves. Hopefully a little bit better than the other one. And apparently not. That's double the voltage it should be. Okay, let's go for third time lucky. I just found this one sitting on the bench. No idea what it's from. But it's supposed to be 12 volt or 3 amp, which is exactly what I actually need. Alright, third time lucky. Well, that's a bit better. I'm a bit more comfortable with that. Because of course that's unloaded, so it will drop a bit. But at least it's not double what it's supposed to be. Alright, we'll go over this one. And I think the other good thing about this one is that it should actually fit straight into the charge port. I don't have to do anything else with it. Alright, so the next thing I need to do is obviously hook up the batteries. So it needs three in series, and I'm going to do 2 in parallel to actually charge it up. Sorry, to do the battery backup part of it. Alright, so after ratting through my box of recycled batteries, I found 6 that I can use. They're all the same chemistry, they're all the same amperage, amp hours, and they've all got the same sort of battery voltage rating. So I'm going to use those ones. And I've already cleaned up the cells previously before I actually ran them through the tester, so that's even better. Alright, so you can see my battery welder here. I've just let it charge up a bit, and it'll tell me when it's ready to go. It's a capacitive one, not a lithium one. So it's got 2 fairly chunkable leads here, and it's got a pedal on the floor, so I don't actually have to hold stuff while I'm doing it. I probably should actually check the voltage on each of these cells before I get carried away. Alright, so yep, that sounds good. That sounds good. That sounds good. 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 Okay. Alright, I've just got to sit here and twiddle my thumbs for a few minutes while it charges up, so I'll go and do something else while I wait for it. I'll be back in a sec. Alright, and so now the the welder's charged up, so I'm now sitting at 5.6 volts for welding, which is good. It's what it needs to be. While I was waiting, I've cut up the nickel strips to weld to the batteries, and I've also got my trusty little hot melt glue gun so that I can actually hold the batteries together. So I probably should do that bit first, because it'll just make it easier to do the welding if the batteries aren't going to move around on me. Alright, I'll just glue these batteries together. Just let that set, and then we'll get into some welding. Alright, now I'll do the second run across the back. And now the final sweeps to hold the whole pack together. That'll be right. Just ran out of glue at the same time. Okay, so batteries glued together, zinc strips are ready to go, the welder's ready to go. Plug some cables in and see if I can do some welding. Alright, that's the front side done. We'll do a couple on the back side. Or just on the other side, whichever way you want to call it. Not really sure at this stage what's going to be the front and back, really. I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? Alright, so the first part of the pack's welded up, so you can see that I've got the positives and negatives joined up on both sides now, so now I should have 12 volts either side of that. There's 12 on there, and 12 on there. So now I'll just parallel them up, so that I've got basically twice as much uptime on those. Basically I want these to go across the battery to parallel them up, and then I want a bit of a tag off the end of it so that I can solder to that. Alright, a bit more welding. Alright, now the positive. Right, so now we should still have 12 volts across here. Very good. So we have our positive and negative wires here. I will just tin them up and then get them onto the battery and then screw them into the board. Okay, well it looks like I've got myself another video to do because this has decided to die, so I'll have to pull that apart and see what's going on with that. So I've got the trusty old one back out and we'll see if this works. Alright, now we'll solder them up. This soldering iron's nowhere near as good as my other one. Now we'll take a positive. Okay, now solder up okay. Battery positive goes into that one, and the negative side goes over here. There we go. Alright, so I think I need a switch for this as well. Alright, so now I've got the plug pack for it as well. Just throw that in there as well. Okay. Funny, I've got my UPS part running off the UPS part. Interesting. So I don't think there's any power coming out of this at the moment. I can't see any lights on this. Trying to find an easy spot to measure it from. Yeah, no, there's nothing coming out yet. I think I've got to put a switch on that. I don't think I've got a plug the right sort for it. Alright, so I've got this little jumper wire from like a Arduino box. So I'm just going to see if that works, and hopefully it doesn't make this burn up if there's too much power going through it. We'll see. There we go. Now I can see if I've got power coming out of these. So if I'm measuring this one, I think this one's 9 volt. There we go. Okay, so now if I unplug that, I'm assuming it should go to sort of UPS mode. There we go. Look at that. Now I've got all those lights on. So the first light here is saying UPS, and then it's basically saying 100%, 75, 50, and 25%. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is obviously find a box for it. So I'll probably mount it up something like that, so that I can get the lights coming out the top here, so you can see it if it needs to go off. And then I'll put that in the box and get it inside. So I don't have a box here with me today, and I'm not going to make one. Managed to get a box and a few other bits and pieces to make this hopefully work. So I've got some plastic screws and nuts and bolts here to screw the board to the bottom of this with, just so that it doesn't I've used metal ones elsewhere before sometimes, and they've actually made a connection, so just to minimize doing that. And the other reason I've got these as well is because on here we've got the LEDs here for displaying what state the system's in, and I need some way to actually transmit that from here up to like out somewhere, wherever it happens to be. I haven't decided yet. So I was trying to find some of that, just that clear plastic solid tubing to use as a like a light transmitter, but no one had any. So my local Jaycar had these plastic screws that I'm going to use for the board anyway. So I'm going to try and hope I'll just plug them in and see if they actually work to actually do that for me just directly from the board. So I guess we'll do that first before I get started. Once I can find the power supply for it. That's it. Excuse my inverter having a bit of a hernia over there with the dead fan. Alright, so you can see I've got my little red light of power there. So I'll grab one of these little plastic screws and hope that it does what I want it to do. A little bit less work if it doesn't, but I'd like it to work. Not great, but it's not too bad. It's better than not having it, I think. You can see the lights coming up through there a little bit. I don't know if you can see it in the picture there. Oh yeah, you kind of can. So I'll just put it onto this card and see if it comes through okay. Yeah, it's not great, but it might be just better than not having anything at all. So then I might just use, because I need four for the board. So then that'll only leave me four for this to do. So then I might just make sure I only use a few, because I need one for power, one for UPS, and then I might do one for 75% and one for 25%. The reason it's not working is because it's not switched on at the moment, because I've got to put a switch on here. But I thought I didn't get something to actually make the switch with. I've got this here. I'm not going to actually make the switch because then I don't want to accidentally switch it off. So I'm just going to connect these together and then put them inside the box so that it's out the way, but it still gives me the power So if I need to take the lid off and pull the pin, I can. So I'll do that. So I might just pull these batteries out. Alright, now I'm just going to figure out where I'm going to put this board. I'm kind of thinking I'll lay it out like that. That's the only thing that leads me to do, so I'll just move that across. So what I'll have to do obviously is just glue those down so they don't move around. I'll have to cut a hole here for all of these, and I'll have to cut this part here off just to make sure that this can actually sit flush up against there. And I'll do it all the way across to include the USB. This I won't cut a hole for, I'll just feed that in through the side and just plug it straight in, so you can't actually accidentally unplug it. And I think that'll do it. So first thing, obviously, drill some holes. I think the first thing is going to be to see if I can cut this edge piece off in here where the board sliders are, because then I can push it slightly forward a little bit. So I'll grab the Dremel, I think, and just cut that little bit off, and then I can move it forward. Right, we'll give the saw a bit of a go and see if that works. Okay, so now I have a bit of a dugout spot in there, so I should be able to move that board just a little bit further forward. Alright, got some red dots. Now time to drill some holes. So the screws are 3mm, so I'll probably do either a 3 or a 4mm hole. Probably mostly depending on what drill bits I've got available. So I think this one's a 3.5, so I'm going to use it. Alright, let's see how well that turned out. Got 4 holes there. Hopefully you can see. Yeah. Too much shade. There we go. Got 4 holes there. Let's see how well I managed to line them up. Okay, well, that lining up worked pretty well. It worked pretty well because all the screws are falling out every time I try and lift the box up without holding onto the screws. So that's not bad. So next I'll mark out where the plug's got to go, and I'll cut that section out, and then work on how I'm going to do the light thing at the top, or whether I do it from the side or what happens there. So I've marked it at the same height as the USB, just so it's easy to cut. And I've gone slightly wider just in case, like, you have those slightly larger plugs that don't like smaller holes, so then it can actually fit through the thickness of the box here as well. So back to the Dremel. Alright, so I have one hole that I now just need to clean up because it's a bit of a mess. Alright, now we have a cleaned up hole slightly. Time to mount the board in. Alright, so now the board's in. Looks a bit rough. Now a couple of these haven't got washers on them because they're too close to components to actually get a washer on, so I've just left them off. So that bit's done. It's now time to move on to the lights. I've come straight away to a problem. So you can see how long these screws are. They're not actually long enough to get anywhere near the board. So I think that's probably going to be a very short-lived exercise to think about trying to do that. Coming in from the side's the same problem, so I might just leave that for now and I'll come back to it another time. So the next thing to do is to just solder this wire together. Okay, quick and easy solder here. Now I'll just put some heat shrink over it. There we go. That's right to go on now once I finish it. So time to put it together. So I'm thinking, because I've got such a big hole here, I'm going to cheat, just run the main power cable in through there. Alright, that's in there now. That was a bit of fiddling. I've left myself a nice gap here, but not quite enough to get the plug through, so I had to sort of just bend the plastic out so I could actually push it past the two plugs here. And also only just managed to get it into the socket there as well, so it's right on the edge, so I've managed to fluke that one quite nicely. So I'm going to glue the battery in there. I'm just going to use the hot melt glue gun again, and that should work quite nicely just to hold it all there, because it's not one of those things that should be bouncing around too much. That'd be scary if it was. So the battery's now glued in. So now I'll just put the cables, once that glue is actually set, I'll put the cables into the battery terminals, and then I'll put the lid on and I'll be done. I'll plug it in. Can't forget the switch. Okay, put the positive in. Alright, so as you can see, that's all done. So I've got all the lights on here because I've got it in UPS mode at the moment, because I haven't actually got it plugged in anywhere. So I won't bore you with just putting the lid on, mainly because I've got to turn it off again, put the lid on, and then actually take it inside and hook it up to the router and stuff. But yeah, there you go. Alright, well thanks for hanging around with me in the workshop again today. Don't forget to hit that like button and hit the subscribe for me. Really helps my channel. Leave me a comment, say hello, and I'll see you in the next one.